双语音标领航，注音阅读启蒙，叶兴阳有声读物。
Faust by Johann W. Goethe translated by Anna Swanwick, 1808. Introductory note. Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, the greatest of German men of letters, was born at Frankfurt on the Main, August 28, 1749. His father was a man of means and position, and he personally supervised the early education of his son. The young Goethe studied at the universities of Leipzig and Strasbourg, and in 1772 entered upon the practice of law at Wetzlar. At the invitation of Karl August, Duke of Saxe-Weimar, he went in 1775 to live in Weimar, where he held a succession of political offices, becoming the Duke's chief advisor. From 1786 to 1788, he traveled in Italy, and from 1791 to 1817 directed the Ducal Theatre at Weimar. He took part in the wars against France, 1792-3, and in the following year began his friendship with Schiller, which lasted till the latter's death in 1805. In 1806 he married Christiane Vulpius. From about 1794, he devoted himself chiefly to literature, and after a life of extraordinary productiveness died at Weimar, March 22, 1832. The most important of Goethe's works produced before he went to Weimar were his tragedy, Gotz von Berlichingen, 1773, which first brought him fame, and The Sorrows of Young Werther, a novel which obtained enormous popularity during the so-called Sturmundidrang period. During the years at Weimar before he knew Schiller, he began Wilhelm Meister, wrote the dramas Iphigenie, Egmont, and Torquato Tasso, and his Reineke Fuchs. To the period of his friendship with Schiller belong the continuation of Wilhelm Meister, the beautiful idyll of Hermann and Dorothea, and the Roman elegies. In the last period, between Schiller's death in 1805 and his own, appeared Faust. Elective Affinities, his autobiographical Dichtung und die Wahrheit, Poetry and Truth, his Italian Journey, much scientific work, and a series of treatises on German art. Though the foregoing enumeration contains but a selection from the titles of Goethe's best-known writings, it suffices to show the extraordinary fertility and versatility of his genius. Rarely has a man of letters had so full and varied a life, or been capable of so many-sided a development. His political and scientific activities, though dwarfed in the eyes of our generation by his artistic production, yet showed the adaptability of his talent in the most diverse directions, and helped to give him that balance of temper and breadth of vision in which he has been surpassed by no genius of the ancient or modern world. The greatest and most representative expression of Goethe's powers is without doubt to be found in his drama of Faust. But before dealing with Goethe's masterpiece, it is worthwhile to say something of the history of the story on which it is founded, the most famous instance of the old and widespread legend of the man who sold his soul to the devil. The historical Dr. Faust seems to have been a self-called philosopher who traveled about Germany in the first half of the 16th century, making money by the practice of magic, fortune-telling, and pretended cures. He died mysteriously about 1540, and a legend soon sprang up that the devil, by whose aid he wrought his wonders, had finally carried him off. In 1587 a life of him appeared, in which are attributed to him many marvelous exploits, and in which he is held up as an awful warning against the excessive desire for secular learning and admiration for antique beauty which characterized the humanist movement of the time. In this aspect the Faust legend is an expression of early popular Protestantism, and of its antagonism to the scientific and classical tendencies of the Renaissance. While a succession of Faust books were appearing in Germany, the original life was translated into English and dramatized by Marlowe. English players brought Marlowe's work back to Germany, where it was copied by German actors, degenerated into spectacular farce, and finally into a puppet show. Through this puppet show Goethe made acquaintance with a legend. By the time that Goethe was 20, the Faust legend had fascinated his imagination. For 3 years before he went to Weimar, he had been working on scattered scenes and bits of dialogue, and though he suspended actual composition on it during 3 distinct periods, it was always to resume, and he closed his labors upon it only with his life. Thus the period of time between his first experiments and the final touches is more than 60 years. During this period, the plans for the structure and the signification of the work inevitably underwent profound modifications, and these have naturally affected the unity of the result. But, on the other hand, this long companionship and persistent recurrence to the task from youth to old age have made it in a unique way the record of Goethe's personality in all its richness and diversity. The drama was given to the public first as a fragment in 1790. Then the completed first part appeared in 1808, and finally the second part was published in 1833, the year after the author's death. Writing in Dichtung und Wahrheit of the period about 1770, when he was in Strasbourg with Herder, Goethe says, "The significant puppet, play legend, echoed and buzzed in many tones within me. I too had drifted about in all knowledge, and early enough had been brought to feel the vanity of it. I too had made all sorts of experiments in life, and had always come back more unsatisfied and more tormented. I was now carrying these things, like many others, about with me and delighting myself with them in lonely hours, but without writing anything down, without going into the details of the experience which underlies these words. We can see the beginning of that sympathy with the hero of the old story that was the basis of its fascination and that accounted for Goethe's departure from the traditional catastrophe of Faust's damnation." Hungarian March from the Damnation of Faust, Op. 24 by Hector Berlioz, 1803 to 1869. Of the elements in the finished Faust that are derived from the legend, a rough idea may be obtained from the Dr. Faustus of Marlowe, printed in the present volume. As early as 1670, For a Life of Faust had contained the incident of the philosopher's falling in love with a servant girl, but the developed story of Gretchen is Goethe's own. The other elements added to the plot can be noted by a comparison with Marlowe. It need hardly be said that Goethe's Faust does not derive its greatness from its conformity to the traditional standards of what a tragedy should be. He himself was accustomed to refer to it cynically as a monstrosity, and yet he put himself into it as intensely as Dante put himself into the Divine Comedy. A partial explanation of this apparent contradiction in the author's attitude is to be found in what has been said of its manner of composition. Goethe began it in his romantic youth, and availed himself recklessly of the supernatural elements in the legend, with the disregard of reason and plausibility characteristic of the romantic mood. When he returned to it in the beginning of the new century, his artistic standards has changed, and the supernaturalism could now be tolerated only by being made symbolic. Thus he makes the career of Faust as a whole emblematic of the triumph of the persistent striving for the ideal over the temptation to find complete satisfaction in the sense, and prepares the reader for this interpretation by prefixing the prologue in heaven. The elaboration of this symbolic element is responsible for such scenes as the Walpurgis, night, and the intermezzo scenes full of power and infinitely suggestive, but destructive of the unity of the play as a tragedy of human life. Yet there remains in this first part, even in its final form, much that is realistic in the best sense: the carousal in Auerbach's cellar, the portrait of Martha, the Easter morning walk, the character and fate of Margaret. It is such elements as these that have appealed to the larger reading public and that have naturally been emphasized by performance on the stage. And by virtue of these alone, Faust may rank as a great drama. But it is the result of Goethe's broodings on the mystery of human life, shadowed forth in the symbolic parts and elaborated with still greater complexity and still more far-reaching suggestiveness, and, it must be added, with deepening obscurity, in the second part, that have given the work its place with Job, with the Prometheus Bound, with the Divine Comedy, and with Hamlet, the tragedy of Faust. Dedication. Ye wavering shapes, again ye do enfold me, as erst upon my troubled sight ye stole. Shall I this time attempt to clasp, to hold ye? Still for the fond illusion yearns my soul. Ye press around. Come then, your captive hold me, as upward from the vapory mist ye roll. Within my breast youth's throbbing pulse is bounding. fanned by the magic breath your march surrounding. Shades fondly loved appear, your train attending, and visions fair of many a blissful day. First, love and friendship their fond accents blending, like to some ancient, half-expiring lay. Sorrow revives, her wail of anguish sending back o'er life's devious labyrinthine way, and names the dear ones, they whom fate bereaving of life's fair hours, left me behind them grieving. They hear me not my later cadence singing. The souls to whom my earlier lays I sang, disperse the throng, their severed flight now winging. Mute are the voices that responsive rang, for stranger crowds the Orphean lyre now stringing. E'en their applause is to my heart a pang, of old who listened to my song, glad-hearted. If yet they live, now wander widely parted, a yearning long unfelt, each impulse swaying to yon calm spirit realm uplifts my soul in faltering cadence, as when zephyr playing fans the Aeolian harp. My numbers roll, tear follows tear, my steadfast heart obeying the tender impulse loses its control. What I possess as from afar I see, those I have lost become realities to me. Prologue for the theater manager, dramatic poet, Merriman, manager ye twain, in trouble and distress true friends whom I so oft have found, say, for our scheme on German ground, what prospect have we of success? Fain would I please the public, win their thanks, they live and let live. Hence it is but meet. The posts are now erected, and the planks, and all look forward to a festal treat. Their places taken, they, with eyebrows rised, sit patiently, and fain would be amassed. I know the art to hit the public taste, yet ne'er of failure felt so keen a dread. True, they are not accustomed to the best, but then appalling the amount they've read. How make our entertainment striking, new, and yet significant and pleasing too? For to be plain, I love to see the throng, as to our booth the living tide progresses, as wave on wave successive rolls along, and through heaven's narrow portal forceful presses, still in broad daylight, ere the clock strikes 4, with blows their way towards the box they take, and, as for bread and famine, at the baker's door, for tickets are content their necks to break. Such various minds the bard alone can sway. My friend, O work this miracle today. Poet, O of the motley throng, speak not before me, at whose aspect the spirit wings its flight. Conceal the surging concourse, I implore thee, whose vortex draws us with resistless might. No, to some peaceful heavenly nook restore me, where only for the bard blooms pure delight, where love and friendship yield their choicest blessing, our heart's true bliss, with God like hand caressing. What in the spirit's depths was there created, what shyly there the lips shaped forth in sound, a failure now, with words now fitly mated, in the wild tumult of the hour is drowned. Full oft the poet's thought for years hath waited, until at length with perfect form 'tis crowned. What dazzles, for the moment born, must perish. What genuine is posterity will cherish. Merriman, this can about posterity I hate. About posterity were I to prate. Who then the living would amuse? For they will have diversion. And 'tis their due. A sprightly fellow's presence at your play, methinks should also count for something too, whose genial wit the audience still inspires. Knows from their changeful mood no angry feeling. A wider circle he desires, to their heart's depths more surely thus appealing. To work, then, give a masterpiece. My friend, bring fancy with her choral trains before us. Sense, reason, feeling, passion, but attend. Let folly also swell the tragic chorus. Manager, in chief, of incident enough prepare, a show they want, they come to gape and stare. Spin for their eyes abundant occupation, so that the multitude may wondering gaze. You by sheer bulk have won your reputation, the man you are all loved to praise. By mass alone can you subdue the masses. Each then selects in time what suits his bent. Bring much. You something bring for various classes, and from the house goes every one content. You give a piece. Abroad in pieces send it. 'Tis a ragout. Success must needs attend it. 'Tis easy to serve up, as easy to invent. A finished whole, what boots it to present? Full soon the public will in pieces rend it. Poet, how means such handicraft as this you cannot feel? How it revolts the genuine artist's mind. The sorry trash in which these coxcombs deal is here approved on principle. I find, manager, such a reproof disturbs me not a whit. Who on efficient work is bent must choose the fittest instrument. Consider, 'tis soft would you have to split. Think too for whom you write. I pray. One comes to while an hour away, one from the festive board, a sated guest. Others, more dreaded than the rest, from journal, reading hurry to the play. As to a masquerade, with absent minds, they press. Sheer curiosity their footsteps winging. Ladies display their persons and their dress. Actors unpaid their service bringing. What dreams beguile you on your poet's height? What puts a full house in a merry mood? More closely view your patrons of the night. The half are cold, the half are rude. One, the play over, craves a game of cards. Another a wild night in wanton joy would spend. Poor fools the muses fair regards. Why court for such a paltry end? I tell you, give them more. Still more, 'tis all I ask. Thus you will ne'er stray widely from the goal. Your audience seek to mystify, cajole. To satisfy them, that's a harder task. What ails thee? Art enraptured or distressed? Poet, depart. Elsewhere another servant choose. What? Shall the bard his godlike power abuse? Man's loftiest right, kind nature's high bequest, for your mean purpose basely sport away? Whence comes his mastery o'er the human breast? Whence o'er the elements his sway? But from the harmony that, gushing from his soul, draws back into his heart the wondrous whole? With careless hand when round her spindle, nature wins the interminable thread of life. When, mid the clash of being, every creature mingles in harsh, inextricable strife. Who deals their course unvaried till it falleth, in rhythmic flow to music's measured tone? Each solitary note whose genius calleth to swell the mighty choir in unison? Who in the raging storm sees passion lowering, or flush of earnest thought in evening's glow? Who every blossom in sweet spring, time flowering along the loved one's path would strow? Who, nature's green familiar leaves entwining, wreaths glory's garland, one on every field, makes sure Olympus, heavenly powers combining? Man's mighty spirit, in the bard revealed. Merrymen, come then, employ your lofty inspiration, and carry on the poet's avocation, just as we carry on a love affair. To meet by chance, are pleased, they linger there, insensibly are linked, they scarce know how. Fortune seems now propitious, adverse now, then come alternate rapture and despair. And 'tis a true romance ere one's aware. Just such a drama let us now compose. Plunge boldly into life, its depths disclose. Each lives it, not to many is it known. 'Twill interest wheresoever sazed and shown. Bright pictures, but obscure their meaning. A ray of truth through error gleaming. Thus you the best elixir brew, to charm mankind, and edify them too. Then youth's fair blossoms crowd to view your play, and wait as on an oracle, while they, the tender souls, who love the melting mood, suck from your work their melancholy food. Now this one, and now that, you deeply stir. Each sees the working of his heart laid bare. Their tears, their laughter, you command with ease. The lofty still they honor, the elusive love. Your finished gentleman you ne'er can please. A growing mind alone will grateful prove. Poet, then give me back youth's golden prime, when my own spirit too was growing, when from my heart an unbidden rhyme gushed forth, a fount for ever flowing. Then shadowy mist the world concealed, and every bud sweet promise made, of wonders yet to be revealed, as through the valleys, with blooms inlaid, culling 1,000 flowers I strayed, not had I, yet a rich profusion, the thirst for truth, joy in each fond illusion. Give me unquelled those impulses to prove, raptures so deep, its ecstasy was pain, the power of hate, the energy of love. Give me, oh, give me back my youth again. Merryman youth, my good friend, you certainly require when foes in battle round are pressing, when a fair maid, her heart on fire, hangs on your neck with fond caressing, when from afar, the victor's crown, to reach the hard, one goal inciteth, when from the whirling dance, to drown your sense, the night's carouse inviteth, but the familiar chords among boldly to sweep, with graceful cunning, while to its goal, the verse along its winding path is sweetly running. This task is yours, old gentleman, today. Nor are you therefore less in reverence held. Age does not make us childish, as folks say. It finds us genuine children e'en in ELD. Manager a truce to words, mere empty sound. Let deeds at length appear. My friends, while idle compliments you round, you might achieve some useful ends. Why talk of the poetic vein? Who hesitates will never know it. If bards ye are, as ye maintain, now let your inspiration show it. To you is known what we require. Strong drink to sip is our desire. Come. Brew me such without delay. Tomorrow sees undone what happens not today. Still forward press, nor ever tire. The possible, with steadfast trust, resolve should be the forelock grasp. Then she will ne'er let go her clasp, and labors on, because she must. On German boards, you're well aware, the taste of each may have full sway. Therefore, in bringing out your play, nor scenes nor mechanism spare. Heaven's lamps employ, the greatest and the least. Be lavish of the stellar lights, water, and fire, and rocky heights. Spare not at all, nor birds, nor beast. Thus let creation's ample sphere forthwith in this our narrow booth appear, and, with considerate speed, through fancy's spell, journey from heaven, thence through the world, to hell. Prologue in heaven the Lord, the heavenly hosts. Afterwards, Mephistopheles. The three archangels come forward, Raphael the sun,